All right, welcome back. It is the Spring Outlook Special on 970 WDAY, 93.1 FM, AM 1100 The Flag, 92.3 FM The Flag, and for you fine folks out there in Western North Dakota listening on KTGO Radio. That man right there, that is the founder. That's Gary Lezak. If you're watching us online right down there, that is Justin Storm, our meteorologist, and Bridget Riedel, our ag director. And right there he is, our chief meteorologist, Dean Y. Ryder Kawasaki. Twisaki. All right, 701-293-9000. Our email, studio at WDAYRadioNow.com. You can also go to weather@flagfamily.com. All right, let's wrap up the rest of what our spring summer looks like. I think we are up to May now. And then let's get to these emails and get to people's personal
personal forecast.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and throw up Cass County back up there, Michael.
Real quick, let's thank our sponsors again.
Yeah. Big thanks to OK Tire, Rainbow PlayStations, Gateway Building Systems, and Jiffy Lube of Fargo. Thank you so much for being our sponsors for our show.
We really do.
Absolutely.
Big thank you.
And Justin, as you call up that graphic, remember what we're talking about here is the weather pattern is cycling regularly. It's absolutely fascinating. This year's weather pattern is one of the most complex I've ever experienced.
You know, I was going to say something, Gary, about that, because it's been a roller coaster ride following this thing.
Yeah, but it's right on schedule. As we go through the complexities, that's what the LRC does. It brings order to the chaos. It describes the order to the chaos. But we know when and where storm systems are going to strike. Like the one that's going to strike later this week, you're going to probably get 3 to 6 more inches of snow. It's not fair because they're in the city we don't get any.
I'm telling you, Gary, you got to move up here.
I don't know. I don't know whether to move to Colorado, North Dakota, or Florida. I'm not sure. What do you think, Jay?
Florida, you better like heat and humidity because it's hot. But you know what?
I know.
It ain't snowing, baby.
It doesn't look bad right now to me. But anyway,
it is a little miserable. It's a little miserable when you got to sit out here for hours on end filming cars, and that gets a little hot.
You look like you're getting tanner and tanner and tanner when we talk.
I'm telling you, it is.
It's
just
shades
like
of red.
Holy smoke, man! It's warm out.
Drink some water.
That's amazing.
Tea, baby. Tea from Sonny's.
I love it. Justin's about to show some of these maps that are from our LRC model. And this LRC patent pending model, the LRC is the one system in the world that can predict when and where things will happen. All these other forecasts you hear from out there will give you a 90-day forecast, a seasonal forecast, but that's it. Here, we're moving into the 4th cycle of this year's pattern right now, and so we know the pattern really well. There's a wild card, though. July and August last year was very wet in North Dakota until it hit the summer. So it doesn't mean every summer dries out, but sometimes the pattern shifts up into Canada, and we'll have to see how that happens this year. But this will be reliable through June for sure.
Pitter patter, let's get at her. What's going on in May?
Yeah, let's go through May and June here.
All right, so let's throw up Cass County again there, Michael, and then we'll kind of bounce around between that and North Dakota, and we'll zoom out a little bit more. But focusing in on our area, just to recap what April was, I'm not going to go through the dates again, but that right beginning of the second week of April towards the middle of the month looks wet. Then the back half dries out, be a little on the cooler side. There's still a few systems in there that we'll keep an eye on. Now, going into May, we were kind of touching on, hey, the second, maybe the third week, looks like more the third week than the second is going to be pretty wet up here in the area. Some specific dates that I have that could be some more impactful systems in our area be around the 4th and 5th of May, the 11th through the 13th, probably a system in that time frame, and then a pretty big sizable storm system that is likely probably going to contribute to a large severe weather outbreak. How far north is that going to extend? I don't quite know at this moment, but around the 15th to the 17th, maybe 18th. So somewhere in that 15th to 18th, I'm leaning between the 16th and 17th, but we'll leave it at that 4-day window right now just because I don't know how fast or slow that portion of the cycle is going to slow down or speed up at this moment. Then it looks like we start to dry out a little bit the last week until the very end of May. We'll watch for another system around the 28th and 29th.
Memorial Day
It
weekend.
rains every Memorial Day. What were you expecting?
Yeah, how are you surprised at this? It's 52 degrees. You're not getting in that
don't
lake.
like this. I hate this.
All right, June. For the most part, June looks like a dry month until you get to the very end and maybe the very beginning.
We can hear when you
Quit
do
tapping
that.
your pencil.
Yeah, what
That's
is
not
that?
me.
Hey,
That's not me.
I'm stupidly texting.
No, but Justin's tapping his pen over here too. We can hear that on the
Oh,
mic.
that's what.
No,
I thought it was
it's an
me.
eraser. It doesn't click.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry.
Mom's making you stop.
Way to
now.
interrupt me. I was on a roll
Sorry.
too. All right,
Come
now
on, let's go, buddy.
Get my readers out here.
I got readers.
Yeah. So June, right as we head into June, that's when it looks like it's going to be wet. You know, end of May, maybe into the first couple days of June will be on the wet side. I got the 2nd, 3rd targeted for a potential system in the area. And then for the most part, June looks to be on the drier side, although I do have some dates selected that could pose a risk for either some severe weather or some periodical rain, somewhere around the 6th and 7th. A maybe system on the 9th and 10th, probably going to go south of us, something between the 17th and the 19th and 27th and 28th. And again, that's not highlighting every minor chance for rain. That's just the potential of a system that could maybe develop into something more than a spitting of rain here in the area. So
Right.
that's
Now,
for
okay,
June.
let's really hit the 4th of July. Oh, no. Is that a big red circle on the 4th of
Stop
July?
it.
I just put a big ol' X over the whole month of July. No, I'm kidding. It'll be fine.
So 4th of July weekend. Or
First week looks wet. I'm sorry.
First week in July.
First week of July looks to be on the wet side. I got something between the 1st and
You,
2nd.
you shouldn't say. You shouldn't say I'm sorry, Justin. I hate saying
Yeah,
I'm
you should.
sorry. Just you know, sports guys on those sports shows. We have 3 meteorologists in here. We should just go at it. You know, they just go at each other.
Right.
That's what I like.
Cage match.
We should not say because there's Bridget. Tell us there's benefits if it rains the first
Well,
week of
and
July.
okay, so I am responding to messages left and right here too. Even though Justin says it's going to have a weather outbreak, it doesn't mean we're going to rain a foot. Doesn't mean that it's going to be over 14 states. We can dial that down, but just plan for the fact that there will probably be something so that you know about it. But we're not saying it's going to be end of the world epic.
You know, and this is also great just in terms of agriculture because we're going to get some periodical rains. There's going to be dry, warm periods, which will be great for growing degree days.
Yes.
You'll get your periodical rain, and then you'll get a few of your bigger soakers to last through those dry parts.
Well, no, I'm seeing 4th of July weekend might be wet, but it looks like the 4th of July it might
4th of
start to dry
July
out.
will be on a Tuesday. I got a maybe system on the 4th of July. That could be just south of us. It might not even materialize into a storm system, but I see a disturbance that could maybe form into something on or around the 4th of July. I have that first weekend, the 1st and 2nd highlighted for a storm. The 6th and 7th could maybe have another system around that time. And then as we head throughout July, looks like periodical rains every handful of days, a maybe system around the 12th, 13th, 14th, 17th, 18th, 23rd, 27th, 28th.
And Gary, you had mentioned that July and August would be the wild card because those, we
Some
might
of
have
those could lift north.
Yeah, we might have a tendency to dry out more than forecasted.
Yes.
Is that now that kind of happened last year, if I'm not mistaken? Did it not?
We
or
did.
was it a
It
little
was
later?
a little late. We started to, but we really tapered off on the rain at that tail end, and it all, the moisture was there. It just shifted, 100 miles further north into southern Canada from where we were expecting it to be
Right.
in the northern Minnesota and the northern valley.
So our northern end of Minnesota the Red River Valley was saying, geez, we keep getting just enough, we'd get a couple tenths every other day, right? They continually stayed
Right.
sort of damp. Here, we got through sugar beet harvest, one of the fastest times we've ever had without the least problems. We weren't pulling trucks in mud, things like that.
And Gary, you had mentioned earlier as well, with La Nina fading and El Nino forecasted to kind of kick in a little bit more. And I know that's only part of, the LRC being the central piece to the puzzle, but, there's other influences. And you had mentioned with El Nino possibly becoming a little more stronghold or a little more prevalent as we head into summer and especially next fall and winter, that these systems might have a tendency to shift westward. Would that put us in a wetter pattern here or a drier pattern here?
Well, the area of eastern Minnesota, Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, that's been the target. That may shift a little bit to the north and west towards southeastern North Dakota.
Right.
So Fargo could end up being that. You're not far away from that extremely heavy precipitation area, as you can see there. So that might shift a little bit north and west as we go into early July and through June. But then what happens in July, the jet stream retreats. The LRC is a description of the flow in the northern hemisphere that is cycling regularly, and it's centered on where the jet stream is. As we go into July and August, the jet stream weakens and weakens, and then reaches its weakest point during the first week of August. What causes the jet stream is temperature contrasts. So when it's really cold there in the winter, it's 40 below zero in central Canada, and it's 100 in South Texas or Mexico. It's 140 degrees of contrast. During the summer, it might be 75 degrees in central Canada and 100 degrees, only 25 degrees of contrast. So the jet stream weakens, it shifts north. The pattern continues to cycle, though. So those systems, even in July and August, are there, and then they re-strengthen and reinvigorate as we go into September, and then boom, a brand new magical thing happens, and the weather pattern sets up again next fall.
Yep. And before we head into our break here, I'll just touch on August real quick. The first couple weeks of August look dry. I still think there'll be a couple of minor systems. They could be north of us. Tail end of August looks to be a little on the wetter side, and then as we head into the middle of September, we're looking for one bigger storm that could maybe be a soaker. But again, we'll keep an eye on that as we get that far out in the pattern. It does start to degrade as we head towards October. We'll just have to revisit that as we head into the summer.
There you go. There you go. The spring outlook special on 970 WDAY 93. Let's wrap up the outlook, and then we'll get to these personal forecasts.
So, Michael, if you can put up that map for the Northern Plains, a quick recap of what we're looking for the spring and summer. We're looking at actually the other map, Michael, if you would, the Midwest map. There we go. So we're looking at precip over through September at or above average, with the heaviest amounts down to our south and east into areas of Minnesota. Again, like Gary said, that sweet spot stretching from north central Nebraska up through the Twin Cities and then northeastward from there. Those will be the areas of the heaviest precip. The further west you go into North Dakota, we're looking at pretty close to average rainfall, so doesn't look like any drought conditions. Now, as we look at temperatures through the spring and summer, on average, we're going to be pretty close to normal here in the valley and into areas of Minnesota, with slightly below normal temperatures, as you can see on that upper left-hand graph there, slightly below normal temperatures as we head into the spring and summer. So overall, we're looking at not a problem for agriculture. We're looking at, although it could be a little wet just southeast of the FM area, that might pose a little bit of problem, especially come spring plant.
It could.
Yeah.
We're going to have to see how this snow melts. What we see in April, likely going to be snow is what you're telling me, not necessarily rain.
Right.
But again, I'm not going to bet the farm that we're planting soybeans again on July the 5th, but I would say we could, there's folks that love the idea of getting their soybeans in as early as possible. We may push that out a little.
I've got it. So basically, pretty close to normal temperatures in the valley, cooler than normal temperatures out in the western part of the state, about average temperatures into Minnesota. So we're not looking at a big, hot summer. We'll have our hot weather, but nothing long and extended, which is good news. And precip we shouldn't have a problem with.
The pattern is cycling regularly. It's close to about 7 weeks this year. And so what's happened is going to continue to happen. California continues to get hit, but the thing in California, the jet stream lifts north and their rainy season ends by the end of April. So even the same pattern will suddenly go dry in California because it just dries out every year as you approach summer. For North Dakota, this year, the storm's track has been to your south, so these powerful surface low pressure areas have been tracking across Kansas, Missouri, into the upper Midwest, and they've gone south of you, so you haven't had as much wind. And that's a sign, just like last summer, we knew it would be windy with these storms, not as much wind this year. So you're not going to have to deal as much. It's just as you saw, those 2 to 3 blizzard warnings those storms will likely produce wind, but the rest of the ones will not be as windy.
While you have South Dakota up, guys, let's hit this because there are so many people from the region that head out to the Black Hills for Sturgis for the bike rally.
Yes, they do.
And also during that time is We Fest here. So why don't we hit those, because those are two major events.
And we just got an email on that. We just got an email on WeFest. So, Gary, that would be the first week in August for our area, for a big outdoor country music festival, and then that first week in August out in the Black Hills for Sturgis Rally.
Yeah.
So let's start with the first week of August for the Black Hills area. And looking at the model, I'm just calling it up. I have to push load here now. Here's August. In August out there, it is showing that it will be actually 3 to 4 degrees warmer than average. And it has a high of 88 to 90 degrees. But the chances of rain, it has almost no chance of rain.
Great news for Sturgis.
So that's for Sturgis. And then for North Dakota?
Minnesota.
Yeah, it's actually in Detroit Lakes. It's an hour east of here in Minnesota.
Minnesota?
Becker County.
Well, hour east the way Dean drives. If you drive like me, you're there in 10 minutes.
Not wrong.
Thursday, August 3rd through Saturday, August 5th. Detroit Lakes, Minnesota.
Ronnie, our fact checker.
So do you have any idea what county that would be?
Becker.
That's Becker.
Okay, I'm just going to call Becker because this is what our model does. We can go down to Becker County and I push apply. Here we go for August 1st. See what it has. Okay, it has in Becker County also no rain expected on our model, 2 degrees above average. It does say 0.4 of an inch of rain over the 7-day stretch. So there may be one thunderstorm.
That's not bad.
And temperatures close to 78 to 80 degrees.
Wow.
Boy, that's good news for WeFest because usually every year WeFest gets nailed with at least one storm one day or a carryover into two. But it sounds like with the LRC,
it has
it might be a
0.4
good
of an
one.
inch of rain.
No, that's nothing.
It does show 0.4 of an inch of rain. Yeah, there could be a thunderstorm, but hopefully not in that wrong moment.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So there you go.
Perfect. You guys want to hit a couple more emails?
See, I got a couple of hundreds of emails, but just randomly grab one here. Andy wants to know how come January was so dry in eastern North Dakota. The LRC did say different. Well, the storm systems were there. They literally just tracked to our south, like northern South Dakota, central Minnesota, and there's a good handful of days where we had trace amounts of snow.
But the Britain, Sisseton, and South Dakota areas in northeast South Dakota sort of hate us some.
They kind of got
Nailed.
wailed.
Yeah. Justin, it's really interesting. If you look at last year, North Dakota, you were in the sweet spot, and you knew you were going to have. That's why you had 11 blizzards. When the LRC is set up this year, where the storm systems that are guaranteed to hit are going to go just south and east of you. So during that stretch in January, the LRC was accurate. It took those storms just south and east of you, but there was enough colder air that it overwhelmed it, and so you guys just missed it. So it was dry. Sometimes you're dry, but you just miss it. This year, that will not happen in Minneapolis, southwest to southern Nebraska, whereas you guys are still going to be on the edge of those systems, which is good. You have enough moisture, so maybe you won't be too wet this year to begin spring.
All right, do we got time to grab Katie, or do we have to wait till after the break?
We got 2 minutes.
Yep.
Okay, Katie in Devlin, South Dakota, you're up on the Jay Thomas Show on the Spring Summer Outlook.
I've been learning about sunspots in school, and I was wondering if sunspots affect our weather. Sunspots affect our weather and go in cycles. Is the LRC based off sunspots at all?
Great question,
Good question,
Katie. Look
Katie.
at that.
Wow.
There's a future meteorologist right there.
Wow.
I know. That is a really good question. Sunspots are not going to immediately directly affect the weather, but they always have to be taken into consideration. When we have a coronal mass ejection, it can influence the electric grids and all kinds of activity. But when it comes to weather, the solar cycles influence climate for sure. All right, there's an influence on climate, but there may even be some kind of influence from the sun that affects the LRC itself each year. But overall, if there's sunspot activity, it's not going to impact a storm as far as we know it. If there's a storm scheduled for North Dakota based on the LRC, sunspot or no sunspot, it's going to hit.
Awesome.
Great. Definitely. This has been a recurring.
All right.
Appreciate the reminder on that one, Gary. This is a recurring question, and it's for you. And I know we've touched on it a few times, but again, where can people go to get these updates, your service from you, your Substack, and what is available from subscribing to your Substack, and just how big of an application does the LRC have? Because it's not just travel, it's not just agriculture. Right. I mean, it's limitless.
Yeah, one thing you can do, the lowest cost is just $300 a year. So if you're interested in weather, you want to get these forecasts, you want to get in-depth weather, and I will dive down into your county. You join Weather 2020. You see on your screen there, weather2020.substack.com. It's really easy. Weather2020.substack.com will last for a whole year, and you'll get an update every single week. I go into the counties and I provide some extensive information. Weather 2020 is also expanding. If you're a bigger business, we are impacting businesses significantly. 3% to 7% of their bottom line. We happen to have a $4 billion customer that's influencing their business $120 million to $280 million. How is that possible? Weather data is now being used, not just through the Substack account by you, and I give you a visualization of it, but weather data is being used by companies around the world now for their business analytics. And Weather 2020 has the only accurate and effective data that can be used to know when and where things are going to be happening. So, for example, how many cars are going to come through the car wash next month? Our system can predict how many cars based on the weather, because isn't car washes, that's based on the weather. So that's what we're doing. You go to weather2020.com. You can inquire there. I'll do a Zoom meeting with your company, and we can go over the possibilities of how it will impact you. And so that's what we're doing with Weather 2020. And we're going to save lives. Bridget talks about all the impacts on agriculture. I love her analysis. We also will save lives. So by knowing it in advance, there's going to be a possible hurricane between Daytona Beach and Miami, September 10th, 11th, 12th, somewhere in that range. I know there's going to be a hurricane right now. The chance is 64%. That probability will increase. That's based on the LRC. If people know in advance, sometimes some people go, so what? So you don't know, so we know 6 months in advance. How's that going to help? Well, even if one family takes a trip to Georgia and visits their relatives and gets out of town and they don't die, that's saving lives. So there's many ways and many impacts with Weather 2020.
No doubt about it. And Gary, we've been saying all along that this will continue to grow as we head over. With your partnership with Barron, this just helps the LRC, and this is going to be. And I hope there's some other meteorologists listening, whether it be locally or across the country.
They're listening.
This is going to be the next way, the next generation's way to forecast weather long term. We'll start it with this generation, and then this will continue to grow over the coming years. I have no doubt about it. I've been forecasting for over 20 years, and this is the most accurate way I have found to be able to forecast long term. Just period. That's it. I mean, yeah.
I appreciate that, and I discovered this back in the 1980s, and before me in the 1940s. A famous meteorologist, Jerome Namias, he discovered something very similar. Like you said with skilling, sometimes in October, November, there's enough information to know what's going to happen in the weather pattern for the following winter. Well, yes, there is. That's what the LRC is all about. But understanding the LRC, we put our neck out there. We literally can get that specific down to a date,
There's nobody else that'll do that. And, is it 100%? No, but it's proven 80% accurate 6 months in advance. That's
That's
amazing.
astounding,
Do we
really.
have time for a few more emails, guys?
Yeah, we got room for a couple. Let's see. I'm just going to throw a couple dates out. These are from our Facebook Live video. Keith and Shelton, you want between May 10th, March 25th. I'm assuming that's here in the FM Metro. Based on our map here, just to go by quick, May, that's March.
That's March, buddy.
April, May, July.
You know, keeping
Next
these in
year.
calendar order.
There we
both
go.
start with an
1st
M.
through the 10th. Looks like we're looking at a system around the 4th or 5th, a maybe system likely south, 8th or 9th, and then right at that following weekend, the 11th through the 13th, probably another system somewhere in there.
And
As
then March
for
25th.
Sheldon, March 25th, that looks like it's also kind of right in between a couple of possible systems, but right now,
And Justin,
okay.
Dane, Bridget, when you look at the weather pattern, the LRC itself, the river Vera above us, it's almost 100%, if not 100%. Like, you look at the Missouri River. The Missouri River, it's flowing. It's accurately flowing 100%. The river Vera up there is flowing accurately. And the LRC has cracked the code to know what the cycle is that year. So it knows when there will be a storm. So that storm is going to likely be where we expect it to be. But predicting the weather for Bismarck or Fargo or for the listeners up in northwestern North Dakota, Minneapolis, St. Louis, Kansas City, when there's a storm coming out, predicting the weather accurately for each city is still going to be quite challenging. But the storm will be there.
Right.
All right. So that's what's so amazing.
I love the analogy you've made when it comes to the LRC. It's the order to the chaos that we know as the weather.
Right.
That's the easiest.
So
Yeah.
Best way to put
our
it.
peers think it's chaos, but this is the order. It's completely the opposite of chaos. And yet it seems like chaos. I totally get it. Our peers out there think it's chaos, but it's ordered, and I'm glad you guys are learning with me over the last few years.